Arsenal's title pursuits have entered choppy waters, but they have the perfect opportunity to steady the ship when they host the Premier League's bottom club, Southampton, on Friday, April 21st, with a 7-point lead up for grabs. With the first championship since 2004 glinting on the horizon, Mikel Arteta's side have displayed signs of nerves in the past 2 weeks as they twice squandered 2-goal leads to draw 2-2 away at Liverpool and West Ham United. Those results have allowed a rampant Manchester City to move within 4 points of the Gunners with a game in hand, and Pep Guardiola's treble-chasing reigning champions now have their destiny back in their own hands. However, Arsenal remain in a powerful position with 7 matches of the season remaining, 4 of which are at the Emirates, which, according to Arteta, could be a crucial factor. The Spaniard looked rather crestfallen after the draw at West Ham, in which Bukayo Saka missed a penalty. But Arteta was far more upbeat when speaking to reporters on Thursday. With an FA Cup semi-final against Sheffield United on Saturday, Manchester City's next league game is Wednesday's potential title decider at home to Arsenal. Now, many people have worried that Arsenal would come to this point at some point in the season where they would not be able to keep up the momentum, because the test of champions is coming into the final pit stop, not slowing down, keeping the pace, because whoever is behind you cannot get to where they're trying to get to, which is ahead of you, unless you stumble. Arsenal have stumbled twice this season in the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately, they don't have the cushion of many points ahead that the likes of Manchester City have had in the past. Historically, the winner at the end of the season goes on a run that puts them anywhere from 9 to 10, maybe even as high as 15 points clear of the next rival, so that come the thicker end of the season, where Champions League football is an interfering factor, where FA Cup latter stages are still a factor, where even maybe injuries are started to plague the squad at large. That cushion is what allows them to go into the final running of the season comfortable that they could still, even by just 1 point, maybe even by goal difference, win the entire thing. Unfortunately, Arsenal have never been able to go on such an extended points gap against Manchester City. Does this bode poorly for Arteta's men Monday, that this might be exactly what we expected would happen all those months ago?
It is never easy to win the Premier League title. I mean, the Premier League is one of the most feisty, the most competitive. And for you to win the Premier League, you've got to put in blood, sweat, and tears. You've got to show your credentials. And for you to be a champion, it doesn't matter when things are going your way all the time. It's when things are not going your way. I can't believe it. It's the first time it's happening in Arsenal's history that they are leading a team by 2-0, and for the second consecutive time, they, of course, are pegged level. It's quite sad, but if Arsenal have the mental fortitude, Bukayo Saka, I'm pretty sure he has not forgiven himself just yet for missing that penalty. But for you to be a champion, you need to overcome this mentality. You need to be able to put up a great performance anytime, any day. You need to be able to think very high, even when things are not going your way, because it's not going to be easy. Manchester City are a top club, and when they are breathing down your neck, you need a special force to motor forward. I heard from Mikel Arteta in his press match conference for tomorrow's game against Southampton. He's saying that if he can just get the support of the crowd, if he can just have a feel that every fan will just forget what happened against Liverpool and against West Ham United and continue chanting the name of the Arsenal.
Manchester City have set such high standards. Even when the last time a team actually challenged them for the title, which was Liverpool, it went to the wire at the end of the season. But I always say that for a team to be a champion, there has to come a point where they must stumble. It might be a blessing in disguise that this team has stumbled in the last 2 weeks, and it might be the exact motivation they need to keep their focus, to keep their head straight, and to go into that game against Manchester City with nothing but a killer instinct driving them, knowing that there's no place for fear, there's only room for ultimate aspiration.
All right, this is what I think Arsenal should go for in that particular game. Let me tell you something. It's like, you don't understand. City are devastating. You don't try to beat City at their game. You don't try to attack City. They will absolutely dismantle you in the first 45 minutes. So if Arsenal can beat Southampton in tomorrow's game and go to the Etihad Stadium, I'm not saying they should have a mentality of going there to draw the game. But they should just go there to match Manchester City. Just match them. Stop them from scoring in the first 45 minutes. And in the second 45 minutes, open the game up. Bring out what you have. But in the first 45 minutes, you must try to contend them. Erling Haaland, yesterday he scored his 48th goal of the season in all competition. This man is relentless. This man is rampaging. And he's still hungry for more goals. Manchester City, the whole squad, they are fit for action. Jack Grealish is in the form of his life. Kevin De Bruyne, the back line. I watched Ruben Dias yesterday. He was like Maldini in his prime. So these guys, they have everything. They have everything in their arsenal to win the league. Unfortunately, they're taking on the real Arsenal, and Arsenal have to show their quality as well.
Well,
so you talk. Okay.
Sorry. About containing them in the first half. Here's the problem I find with that, because the game could be over in the first half. Going up against Manchester City, the only time that Pep Guardiola is ever truly scared is when the team he's playing forces his team to play a more transitional way of playing football. And I say that to say the match doesn't stop. We see the way Liverpool play against them. Even when they lose, the team is exhausted. Pep Guardiola feels a mental fatigue, and Arsenal are one of the better sides in the Premier League that can play possession football, that can press, that can counter-press, that can press from the top, that can win the ball back, that do have a lethal attack, that do have the capacity to open up defenses, that do have various ways to attack. They do have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And I suppose that any idea for Arteta to go into the first 45 minutes, believing that if they can just retain their shape and then break out in the second half, which Pep Guardiola would be expecting, by the way, I don't think it's the best idea for them. But you have a different line of thinking. What do you think of mine?
Completely different, because I've seen City play time and time again. If you can remember the game Arsenal lost to Manchester City at the Emirates Stadium this season, I think it was 4-1 or 3-1. Arsenal had the most possession. That was actually the first time in an English Premier League game that Pep Guardiola's men had about 36 ball possession. So Arsenal played more than them. They had the ball more than them. But City were the ones scoring. If you want to beat City at their game, then you are just inviting danger. Because City, you can't beat them at their game. Just hit them on the counter. That's what you have to do. City don't play counter-attack. They make sure they play possessive football. They create chances when they want to. But if you ensure that in the first 45 minutes, you close in the tracks, you close in the gap, you mark them man for man, you stop them from creating chances. And once you nullify their tactics, that is when you are on top of them. But once you try to match their tactics, that is when you fall into trouble. Because you're going to want to play that kind of football, possessive football, counter-attack or attacking football. That's when City will beat you anytime.
If I can
take your mind, let me just finish up. If I can take your mind to when they dropped points against Aston Villa at the Villa Park, Villa were defending. When Haaland scored the first goal, Villa were defending in disguise. They hit them on the counter. They got the equalizer. The same way they draw points against Newcastle at the St. James's Stadium. The same way Manchester United beat them at the Old Trafford. This is the only way proven to beat Manchester City. You don't beat Manchester City attacking them. You don't beat Manchester City holding the position.
Not the only way. Marcelo Bielsa famously showed his hands when he beat Manchester City at the Etihad, playing exactly that relentless, high-energy attacking football that he does play. I want to make a quick analysis for you, and I wonder if you will agree. Pep Guardiola's side for the last few years have always thrived on dominating possession. And the forward line is usually has never been equipped as it is this season with a lethal goal scorer who's as big as Erling Haaland, who's as strong as Erling Haaland, who's as quick as Erling Haaland. Now, they have Erling Haaland. Once upon a time, they would have pressured the team back into their box 18, try to open them up, try to pick out little spaces with everyone coming back and moving forward, rotation continually taking place. Now, in that regard, a lot of teams took a decided approach to staying back, defending the post, and then maybe launching 1, 2, maybe if they were lucky, 5 overall attacks and potentially scoring 1, maybe 2 goals to earn a result, whether it be a draw or a win. Now you have Erling Haaland in that squad. If a team sits back, you have this big man who's leaning back on your defender, who can outmaneuver, who can bully every defender in your box 18. They could play the ball to him, and every attempt to close him down would only lead to space opening up for other players to run into. I suspect that any approach going forward that doesn't take Erling Haaland's humongous stature into consideration when thinking of setting up a structure that simply defends, especially when Man City in the last few games have gone into a role, the kind of role that we know they go into at this time of the season, where they have the title in their sight and they are so close to it, they can very well taste it. I think any approach that doesn't take into account that big threat that Haaland poses, because if you stay back, he can be a devastating pressure on your defenders. If you play a high press up front, he can run into the spaces behind. Arteta is going to have to find a tactical solution, and I do not believe that the best tactical solution would be to sit back and attempt for counter-attacking football.
I didn't say Arsenal should sit back. Of course, that is not the recommendation. I would recommend that for Arsenal. Now, this is what I was saying. If you can stop the passing lanes, if you can stop the tracks, if you can make sure that your players are wide up the pitch, ensuring that the passes are not coming. We talked about Erling Haaland. I completely agree with your analysis. But how about the fact that if you stop the supplies to go to Erling Haaland, if you ensure that Bernardo Silva, who I'm pretty sure Pep Guardiola is going to employ him on that day, Kevin De Bruyne, of course, is a tricky customer. Pep Guardiola will want to employ him on that day because they know that is where the passing is. If the midfield is a little bit compacted, if Thomas Partey is doing his job, Xhaka is doing his job, because that is where Manchester City win their football time and time again. That is where the ball comes to Erling Haaland. Of course, Erling Haaland is a big man. I'm not sure he's a man or a monster because he's impeccably good this season with 48 goals in all competition. So if you can stop the supplies to him, because Erling Haaland is not going to take the ball by himself. He's not good on a solo. He's not even good as a ball playing striker. So he can't do anything with the ball except you give him the ball when the chances are created already. So that's how good Arsenal should ensure that they just Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, if they want to get at least a point, because I think a point will do for them in that game, because if you get a point against Manchester City, that is a massive boost.
I'm sure Mikel Arteta will be very worried, because while Erling Haaland isn't a ball-playing striker, Julian Alvarez certainly is. And the worst thing that potentially could happen could be for Pep Guardiola to tweak his formation, to tweak his setup, to have both Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez in that match.
I agree with you, but you know, Pep Guardiola, he might come up with that. It's like, you know him very well. He's an overthinker. He tends to bring out the unexpected. Julian Alvarez might start, but I'm not sure he will. Erling Haaland will likely
definitely
start.